welcome to another episode of Haute Kewture, a knitting and sewing podcast or vlogcast. If you are a new viewer, welcome. I hope you like this little corner of the internet where I talk about some of the garments that I have been making, thinking about making, or planning to make, and frogging or undoing. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back. I really appreciate you coming back and checking out, and the fact that you're interested in what I've got going on creatively. So thank you. Before I get started, I am recording this episode on Dharug Country in Australia, which acknowledges the First Nations people on which this land was never ceded. And I think it's important to call that acknowledgement out. So whenever I don't do it verbally, I make sure that I've got that written representation in my description box below. Speaking of which, I will do my very best to give you the names and the details of anything that I talk about today. There is quite a lot to get through and it is quite mixed. So it'll be in two parts. It'll be sewing and it'll be knitting. I will probably talk about the things together and just group it by finished items, acquisitions, planned projects, and current works, just because that's easier for me to bundle them into those baskets. I didn't wait as long this time to record. I felt a bit inspired to share a little bit with you, so that's what I'm going to do. If you follow me on my Instagram, which is also Haute Kewture, you would have seen that I've been doing quite a lot of sewing lately. So I do have a lot of sewing finished objects. I have a pair of high-waisted trousers by the Assembly line, which I made in this grey suiting fabric that I got from Spotlight. Really great sew. If you've never made trousers before, I really recommend making a toile or a practice garment. Practice version is a really good way of you to work out your fitting, but also to go through some of the new techniques that you maybe haven't worked on before. So for those trousers, I've never made like the fly flap for the trousers before. I actually never made trousers before, like proper ones. I've made elasticated waistband pants for just, I think one of them I made them in like a sweatshirty fabric, and another I made in linen, just as wide leg, no fitting required. And so this was a new skill for me. So what I did was to minimize how much fabric I was going to use on the practice garment, but also work out my fit issues, was I made a pair of shorts because obviously it's going to use less length. I always know that I can work out the length of something on the finished item or the to be worn item rather than the practice garment. So I used some fabric from a garment that I was no longer wearing. I unpicked it and I cut the pattern pieces out for the shorts in that fabric. So I upcycled fabric, I guess you can say, to make my toile, and the shorts fit great, and I've been using them heaps, which has been really awesome because the weather here has been really erratic with really intense muggy days and then really stormy cold days. So drastic differences, which means you need to be prepared for everything to an extent. So I made those trousers. I will put some footage, which you may have already seen, just showing you the fit and how they are. I really love them. I will make more. I have planned to make more. And I have some other trouser patterns that I want to try as well. So I've said it before and I'll say it again. Anything that I do try and make or create, or that I'm inspired to create, I do it with the intention and the purpose of it being a multi-purpose garment or a multi-occasion garment. So from corporate wear to work to something I can dress down more casually to something that I can dress up more for an event. So I try my best to pick styles and silhouettes that have that multi-layered function for me. And some are just fun garments, but a lot of the stuff that I feel like making lately is taking that flavor. It's like, can I wear this to work and wear it outside of work? So that's my first finished object. My second finished object is the Saltwater slip dress by, I want to say Friday Pattern Co, but I could be wrong. I made that with a black linen. It was the first time that I have made a slip dress that had adjustable shoulder straps. So if you think of a bra strap that has a slider to adjust the height, this dress has that in the pattern. Super easy to do. I upcycled some plastic fasteners from an old bra. So salvage your old garment notions where you can. The underwires in old bras, the clips in the back in old bras, the sliders in your old bras. If you are someone who's sewing, those items are really easily salvageable, as are some zippers and buttons. So think about that before you toss something out because it's in too poor a condition to donate or to resell. Salvage the notions if you're an amateur sewer or an aspiring sewer or sewist, because it'll not only save you money, but you are actually able to reduce your waste impact through your hobby as well. Made that dress. It's great. It's got really nice side slits. I've made it in a midi length. It's just been something that I can just throw on when I can't make up my mind on what I want to wear. Made the version with the waist tie, and I will make sure that I put photos of this one. Awesome footage. I am mindful that I haven't documented that one yet, I don't think. So those are my sewing finished objects. I guess that's technically 3. My knitting finished object is the Louvre sweater, which I'm still weaving in ends, so that's why you can see a tail. So you might not be able to see all of it. This is a really beautiful colour. You can see that there. It is Blue Royale by La Bien-Aimée in their DK Merino. The dye ran a lot while I was blocking this. I got some really good tips from a few people on how to stop that. Blocking out with a teaspoon of citric acid was one solution, which will help block the dye in. Another one was to use vinegar if you don't have citric acid. And a third one was to use colour catcher sheets, which you can get from a grocery store or online. And put a couple of those in the basin when you're blocking the garment to catch the dye. This garment I've been wanting to make for a while. I cast it on, I kind of want to say September, August last year. And it just, I did the neck and I got to the short rows at the front, and then I got distracted by some other makes. So I did not finish it. It's not a slow knit. I used a DK. I did not gauge swatch. I don't know if you can hear that. I hope you can't. I'm going to keep going. There's someone outside yelling. So, I really wanted to make this. I did not gauge swatch. I used DK weight. The pattern calls for Peer Gint. And I've had a few conversations with a couple of people, and the general consensus is it's not really quite a DK. It's more like an Aran. It's this weird in between. So what that means is this pattern has quite a lot of ease. So I made a small, which would have given me 5 to 10 centimeters, I guess, ease in the bust. I think this calls for like 20 centimeters ease in the bust. So I thought that what would end up happening is I would get enough ease for me to still get somewhat of an oversized look, but I didn't. It fits. It's got ease, not as much ease as I had hoped, and the color, while it's beautiful, I really wanted a cobalt blue. So when I bought this from La Bien-Aimée, it was more purple than blue. I see it more purple than blue. It's like this weird in-between color. But I knitted it up anyway. I invested the money in the yarn. I wasn't gonna change it or turn it into something else. So I finished it, blocked it. My stepdaughter saw it and she was like, I love this purple. And I didn't alternate skeins, so you can see there's a bit of like a gradient change in some of it. She's like, I love how it does that. So I got her to try it on and it fits her really nicely. It's loose but not oversized or baggy. She's quite tall for her age. So, and I said, just try it on, let's see how it looks. She's like, oh, I really like it. It looks really good. So cool, thanks. And I put it away. So what I'm going to end up doing is her birthday's coming up. I'm going to gift this to her and I'm going to put a cute woven label on it. This one, which I got custom made. And yeah, it'll be a birthday present for her. So not a lost opportunity to make. And then I've also, in the acquisitions bit, will show you what I did get to actually make myself a Louvre sweater. So that's the only finished object I have to show you in terms of my knitting. I'm just gonna have some coffee. So hopefully you've got something to enjoy. I've been in this weird phase where I've been putting like coffee mate into my coffee. I like the flavor of it. It's weird. Well, I'm told it's weird. I don't think it's weird. So for all the coffee mate lovers out there, and that's like a whitener or a creamer for those who don't know what that is. So that's it in terms of my only knitted finished object. Last time I talked about continuing to work on the Weekender and casting on the Louvre sweater. Not the Louvre sweater, sorry, the Franky sweater by Sandnes Garn. So I will show you, I'm just looking at my table. So this is the yarn I've been using for the Weekender. I'm making the worsted weight version. It's a pattern by Andrea Mowry. I have made a Weekender before in the light version using Brooklyn tweed shelter. I feel like I want to say shelter. In like a grey. Anyway, I have made lots of progress. Even in this heat, I haven't, as long as I'm cool, I'm okay to knit worsted weight. I'm almost done. I'm on the last sleeve, which is amazing. So I'm making, I believe it's the size 3. This is a gift knit, which I'm really excited to have done early. Look at that center seam. It's been a really nice knit. It's a bottom-up sweater. It still needs to be blocked once finished, and I'll sew in one of those nice labels, and it'll be a gift for my mum for her birthday. So I'm very pleased to get that done early. It frees up a bit of my mental bandwidth. I always find getting stuff done early will do that for me. So great knit, great yarn. If I were to give you verbs and adjectives to describe the yarn, it is a non-superwash, so it's technically a rustic yarn by Rerum Natura. It is soft, but it has like a very small crunch to it, which means the stitches like catch onto each other quite beautifully. So you don't necessarily have to worry about like yarn slipping off metal needles. If you knit with superwash, you know what I'm talking about, where it's a bit slippery and they can slide off, so you tend to use a wooden needle instead. You don't have to do that with this yarn. It's really beautiful. It feels really lovely. The only thing that I have noticed for me personally is that my hands, for the first time in my life, I've gotten really dry while working with this yarn. So I've had to be moisturizing in frequent intervals while I'm using this. I don't know if that's just me, but even throughout the entire pandemic, I have never had an issue with like having to sanitize frequently and having the alcohol from the hand sanitizer dry out my hands. It's been a non-issue for me. But for some reason, this yarn has dried out my hands. So I've had to moisturize them frequently. So if you've had that issue, let me know. And would love some recommendations on some knitter's balms. I hear that something with lanolin complements knitting quite well. I guess it's because it's is it like the sheep fat? It's the lard that complements the yarn. So yes, so great pattern, great wool. If you haven't tried Gilliat, give it a go. There are a couple of beanies in worsted weight that you could probably make with a ball if you're trying it for the first time. And you'll get what I mean. If you're a fan of like a rustic yarn or a not so slippery yarn, you'll really enjoy this. One of the other beautiful things is that it's when you're breaking the yarn, so usually if I'm having to break the yarn to start a section with a superwash, I have to pull quite aggressively to get it to snap if I'm not using scissors. This breaks quite effortlessly, almost like an unspun, but a bit stronger. So I guess that just gives you an idea of how light it is as well. So yes, I will make more Gilliat. I forgot to grab it. I have this in the color for it, which is like a forest green, which I will be using to make probably a cardigan, I think, like a worsted weight cardigan. I'm still not sure because I could also make a sweater. There's enough for both. So current whip going very well. Hoping to finish it by the end of today. Today's Sunday. So I finished the other sleeve, the first sleeve. I started it Friday morning and I finished it, including the tubular bind off, by Saturday evening, and that was with breaks and not knitting like non-stop. The other work in progress that I have at the moment, which I'm enjoying, it's just a lot of ribbing, and because I've been prioritizing the weekender, it's just not had as much love. You may have seen a preview of this on my Instagram when I was at the hairdresser. New French, who is? Where I was trying to work out how I got coffee on it. So most of it washed out, I think. I don't know. I can kind of see a little bit of a thingy there. It's not stained, but I think it'll come out in blocking. This is the Franky sweater, and I have reached the part of the body. So I knit, how do I explain this? You're meant to knit from underarm to ribbing a certain amount based on the pattern, or up to a point where it's 20 centimeters before you want the garment to end. So I knitted, just to give you an example, instead of say knitting 10 centimeters from the underarm cast on, I knit 15. So I added a little bit more. And now I'm up to the 20 centimeter ribbing, which is normally like, it's a really nice, like, don't have to think too much process, but still enough interest that it's not completely boring. This wool is really nice. I think I talked about it in the last one, that it feels a little bit like a blown yarn. It's cotton, alpaca and wool. I'm really enjoying the Sandnes Garn wools, to be honest. I know I started off like my vlogcasting really heavily into the hand dyed, but like I'm really enjoying some of these commercial yarns, and I'm really loving their price point as well. And it's giving me like really great outcomes with the garment. I digress. So this, I'm still working on the ribbing. Once I hit 20 centimeters, I can then move on to sleeve island. And the sleeves are quite wide. I don't think they have any decreases from memory. They're quite wide and long, and they have really long ribbing as well. So I'm really pleased to finish the Franky sweater. You can say that that was probably one of the most successful marketing campaigns that impacted me, because the photo in the pattern book is just this grey, in this exact shade grey, this sweater hanging on a wooden hanger with some like Dr. Martin style lace up boots, and it's just against the wall. And for some reason that like, it just sung to me. I have Dr. Martens, I don't have a light grey sweater like that. This is totally me. I can tuck them into pants, I can tuck them into a skirt, done. So I've started to notice now that that's like one of their key visuals for their patterns as well. So I have to be careful. I know it works on me, so I have to be careful about whether or not I really want the item. Most of the times I do, because I like their minimal style. So that's my second work in progress, and that's essentially it. I did recast on the Kuutar, but it's not progressed enough to show you much. It's like 4 rows in. And I've picked up the tin lin there, which is like a linen cotton viscose blend. I'm making the singlet version. I'm starting again. I've gone down to 2.5 millimeter needles for the lacework area, just because of how off my gauge was the first time round. So I don't know if I talked about this in one of my prior episodes, but I started that singlet. I got all the yoke lacework done, did the joining of the underarms because it's a singlet, and it was just like a 10. So I don't know if it was a combination of gauge. I didn't use the right needle size. So I was looking at the pattern again, and I realized that maybe I thought or assumed that it was the same needle size all the way through rather than going down. So I've gone down even more. And it's looking much better. So hopefully by the next episode, it'll either be finished or well progressed. Yeah. So that's whips for knitting. I'm in two minds about whether I want to talk about planned projects or acquisitions, because they tend to commingle for me. I did mention that I'm going to make more trousers, so I guess I'll talk to planned projects, and then if there's an acquisition, I'll just show it to you there. I'm going to make more trousers. I was looking at super cheap fabrics, and they had cobalt blue suiting fabric and like a Valentino red fabric and like a deep navy. Super cheap fabrics lives up to its name. I think those fabrics were discounted, and they were at something ridiculous like $2 to $3 a half meter. So I bought a lot because I'd like to not just make trousers. I'd really love to be able to make a skirt or a pinafore or a dress even, with the similar colors, because then I can start to build some of my knitted garments into that. So for example, I was talking about the Louvre sweater and how I had planned it and how I really wanted it in a cobalt. So I have the cobalt here. So my thinking is with the fabric, even though it's along the lines of the same cobalt family, it won't be exactly the same, and that's okay. I don't want it to look like a uniform. I want it to look like, oh, she's wearing like different cobalts at the same time. I think I've talked about this before. It's crayon dressing. So happy about that. I have some red Hulse Super Soft that I bought on cones. I think it's called a Venetian red. I've actually got it on a string on my wrist. And I want to make a cardigan out of this, pairing it with some red mohair. So again, that'll go with the red pants as well. And navy, I just think is a really great staple as well as black. So I have some, I believe it's Winterfell, the colorway from La Bien-Aimée that I got last year in the Como and her merino fingering to make another lento. So I have a green lento in the Joanna colorway. I am going to make a navy one. And that's just, I haven't wound up the skeins to do it, and I've been doing other stuff. So those are kind of, that's the way I've been approaching my makes lately, is how can I pair the knitted garment with a sewn garment. My goals so far for this year, I didn't want to set like a make 9. I know a few people are doing that, and that helps them keep oriented with what they want to make. I am quite intuitive, and I guess I go with where I feel most inspired, because that's most motivating to me. So you would have seen a few episodes ago, I went through how I make my project cards, how I picked my colors for the Explore Knit Fibers update. So I have the project cards for my planned projects sitting there in a folder where I've got the yarn, I've got the pattern, I've done like a overlay of the color on the actual pattern photo just to see how that's going to look, to give it a bit of a color preview with the tone. So what I would really love for this year is to tackle as many of those as I can, because my reward on top of having a finished object is I get those project cards printed. So what I'm doing is I will take like a finished object photo, and I will put the date of when I finished it, how much I enjoyed it, onto this postcard template in Canva. And they let you print stuff one-off, essentially. So you don't have to buy like a batch of 30 of the same thing. So what I've been doing, and what I've done for a couple of the finished objects, is once it's finished, I replace the like sample image of the pattern with the version on me, or the version of the garment that I made. And then I put it like a stamp over it that says finished. And I've had 2 or 3 objects that I've been able to do that with now. I really should get them and show you. 1 second. We're back. So, for example, this one. So this one I finished and I blocked. I took finished object photos, which were a lot of fun. I've been watching David Sa. I love their tutorials on posing. So that's what that is. I'm not naturally a gifted poser. I'm just a visual learner, I guess. So that's what I'm doing with my finished objects. And then I stick them into my journal, and I want to eventually obviously glue them down. I just haven't gotten around to it. So that is what the end product looks like for me in terms of record keeping or tracking what I've made. So what my goal is to be able to tackle as many of those as I can, because whilst I've slowed down how quickly I'm acquiring yarn and fabric, I've not necessarily tempered the pace of my pattern acquisitions, because I'll see a pattern, the release day, they usually put them on sale. So I'm like, if I don't get it now, I have to wait, or they might not go on sale later. So I just buy them. So I have a lot of stuff in my pattern library for knitting and sewing. that I just haven't gotten around to making, even though when I first saw it, I was like, this I need in my life. I don't know if I'm the only one that does that. And I am definitely a pattern hoarder. So for 2023, my goal is to be able to get through as many of those project cards and have them printed off so that I can put them in my journal. And then start to work out if I've got any gaps or if there's anything else that I'd like to make or any fun stuff that I'd like to make just for the sake of making it, really. But I definitely see that after finishing the gift and finishing the Franky sweater, probably casting on the Louvre. I was talking to one of my friends and they also really like the Glyn sweater. I've mentioned the Glyn sweater before. I'll put up a photo of the project card that I have because it was intended to be made with the Exploring Knit Fibers update yarn that I got in the colorway Guinness. So I'll probably cast that on. It's a DK weight. It should knit up fairly quickly. So that's it for planned projects. I've got notes here in my book which say, want more cardigans. I do want more cardigans. That's a complete sentence. The other thing that I've been pondering on is I have this ready-to-wear top that's high neck, but not a funnel neck. It's elbow length. So it comes to like the inner part of the elbow. It's a ready-to-wear item that I got from Target, which has become a really great staple for my work wardrobe, but also when I want to be casual. And I found one pattern that looks like it, but it's had some issues depending on who you talk to. I'm just going to look up the name of it because if you've made it and you have feedback that you can share, that would be amazing. It's called the Lunati. I'm just pulling it up on Ravelry by, is it the Lunati? I thought it was another one. Maybe it's the Lunati. It might not be the Lunati, it might be another one. I think the Lunati is the one that I found that didn't have issues. There's another one that doesn't have raglan increases. It doesn't matter. I'm not here to put anyone on blast. It is the Colette Tea by Vitre Designs. And some of the comments on Ravelry were a bit like, I like this, it's not well written, rah, rah, rah. I don't know. If you've made it and you didn't have any issues, please let me know. Or if you made it and you did have issues, happy to hear feedback. Feel free to contribute to that in the comments. Be most helpful. I have a photo of it here, so I'm just gonna, it's this style. Hopefully you can see it. Yeah. Anyway, I want one of those. I want to make one of those rather than just relying on ready to wear because they are made with like elastic fabric that's made essentially in a knitting machine rather than actually sewn. So they're really hard to replicate unless you have the right dimensions and you're able to do it knitted. So that's it in terms of planned projects for knitting. In terms of sewing, I do have a couple of more planned projects. So I made, oh man, I forgot to mention it. I made a new turtleneck in like a black knit fabric, I guess you can call it. It's not exactly like a merino activewear fabric. It's just like the fabric, almost like the cotton elastane that you get for t-shirts, but nicer. I made a turtleneck out of that the other day in black. I have a couple, but this design was just like, wasn't oversized. It hugged the curves in the right way. So it's great in terms of a template to hack into a dress. Like if I wanted a turtleneck, long sleeve, bodycon style dress with maybe some slits up the side, totally here for it. And there's another dress that I've got a pattern for, which is also made with a knit fabric, that looks really lovely. Like the sample looks really lovely. I'm not going to mention the designer or the pattern maker just because there's been a bit of controversy around them and I don't want to indirectly advertise for them. So it's a nice dress. I probably won't put finished object photos up of these items. I'm actively choosing not to, but I've already spent the money before the controversy to make these items. So they already have my money. I'm just not going to give them more exposure. Anyway, I have this grey ribbed fabric that I'm definitely going to make like a knit dress in. And in true nautical style, I also have this. So I have enough here to make like a dress and a top and a t-shirt if I want, so that I can build up my capsules a bit more. And then I can use it essentially. So those are all from Spotlight. They were doing a massive sale, so I got a really good deal. I think I bought like 3 to 4 meters of each. When I find a good staple item, I tend to stock up because I know I'm going to make more than one thing out of it. In terms of other knitting acquisitions, so I showed you the Peer Gynt. I got Sweaters Quantity in this beautiful blue. I have the Bendigo Mills Classic Hunter. I'm not sure if I showed this in the last episode. This is going to be for my fiance's jumper that I'm making him. And I showed you one of the labels that I got custom made. This is another one. This is made with love. Dear Putty, which is like Auntie Putty. This is for some of the stuff that I want to make for my niece and nephew. And the only other acquisition I have is that I got, so Petite, again, my local Finnish yarn store, is having a sale. So I got these at a good price. And they also had the Petite knit project bags on sale. So I saw this one and just, I thought it was cute. It's a very lightweight cotton fabric. It's probably something that I could sew myself, to be honest, but I thought it was cute. And I hadn't seen this fabric here, so there you go. And yeah, I think that's it for acquisitions and planned projects. I kind of muddled it all together. So that's for my maker update. So maker, acquisitions, planned projects, what's inspiring me. P.S. If you've not seen the Fashion Week runway shots to get a bit of inspiration, you need to get onto that. It's so good. Especially some of the really quirky like couture stuff that's going on. It's definitely, I find it interesting. Like that someone can draw up a sketch and then they've actually made the construction of it in this really unconventional way. Like there was, don't know if it was Dries, one of the runway shows where they're like beautiful couture gowns. And then there was some where the models were like the dress was upside down on them, or the dress was like horizontal and they were just like threw a cutout in the middle. So weird and amazing. Anyway, I'm going to give you a bit of my life stuff now. If you're not interested in that, that's totally cool. I'll probably also mention a little bit about shop updates. So if you're keen to hear about that, then stick around. So I had a really tough start to the year. I will try to keep it together. Our dog died. And this is like our dog, like the dog that my partner and I have had for 6 years. So he was still quite young. We suspect, and the vets suspect, that he was bitten by a poisonous snake. So yes, those do kind of pass on through people's backyards here in Australia. And you kind of are always told that, and you're told to be aware of that. And So everyone's generally aware of that, but you never think it's actually going to happen. Like, we're in a suburban area. We don't face onto any bushland or reserves or grass fields or anything like that. But yeah, it was like horrible and sudden and traumatic. And yeah, we were really upset. We cried a lot. So it took me a little bit to kind of decide whether or not I could talk about it without crying, and I didn't want to put that in there. I know some people are like open to that authenticity, and I like applaud them for doing that. So that was tough, and still is tough. Like, I still get a bit choked up about it. And my parents' dog is really, really well, but he's starting to like lose some of the functioning in his hind legs, so he'll drag like one of the hind legs. So we're treating all the symptoms, and he's not in pain or anything, but like he's got cancer, so it's a matter of time. But I think they're really lucky that they get a bit more time with him, and it's not like a sudden from one day to the next. You think that they've eaten something and they're eating grass to purge, and then the next minute they like legitimately drop dead. So really shit. Excuse me. So that was kind of a nice dark cloud for the beginning of the year. Separately though, I am looking at doing some more post-grad study. Nothing major, like a 2 or 3 year thing, like just a short grad cert. Interested in upskilling a bit in new tech and law, so I've applied, and fingers crossed I get to do that. It's a 6-month course, which would be really, really good. So we got a little bit cut off, but that's okay. What I was saying is I am a legally certified and trained professional, but I don't work in that capacity right now. But I am looking at what other tertiary postgrad degrees I can do, because I want to. So that's some of my life update stuff. I also did some yarn dyeing with one of my friends who runs their own yarn dyeing business. It was like a one-off experience that she arranged, which was a lot of fun, and I can't wait to have the skeins so I can show you what they look like. Very true to me, like very neutral with like light specks on it. So think of it like a vanilla cake with like frosting, like vanilla frosting and sprinkles. We've gone to some gigs, or do you guys call them festivals over there? I don't know. Some gigs. So we went to the Feel Good Fest earlier in the year, which was awesome. It's like an alternative music heavy metal festival. We saw Comeback Kid perform, and we also saw Evergreen Terrace. So if you didn't know before, surprise, I like alternative music, and yeah, I sometimes hide it quite well. That was a lot of fun. It was really great to get out into that environment again. It's been so long. Yeah, it's just a blast. You realize how old you are though, especially with like, if you're not wearing earplugs or earbuds, it's like a killer for your ears. I also have like a textured paint class that I'm going to go do with my sister in the next week. I think it's next weekend, which will be a lot of fun. Hopefully I'll have something to show you from that. I really enjoy being creative, so we'll see. A couple of knit nights and knit meetups coming up as well, so that's a lot of fun. And we're going into February. I'm just thinking if I've got anything else on the horizon, but I don't think I do. Aside from segue, shop update. So Colorways Collective has been a bit quiet, and I've had it paced that way on purpose. I guess I haven't been as active on that social media account as I have been on my personal one, and I've thought about merging the two, but I don't really want to. Anyway, the next update theme is neon neutrals, and I had settled on that like almost like halfway through last year. So when everyone was coming out with neons, or started to come out with neons, and I was like, oh, I can't do neons. I was initially going to do neons, but a lot of updates were with neons, but I still wanted something with like neutral. So my objective when I'm talking to the indie dyers is to put out something that will complement, supplement, and support a lot of the stuff that's already out there, as well as giving people a bit of a preview into some of the other stuff that some of the local dyers here in Australia can do. So with that said, I've decided for the next update to put out twin sets as part of Neon Neutrals. So this is a preview of the first one. I have 2 more bundles coming to me. So it won't be a massive update, as in a gazillion colors. It'll be sets of 2 in fingering weight that go together. So you'll have a neutral base with some speckling, and you'll have like a neon variegated tonal that is meant to match up with the speckled yarn. So you can use that in a colorwork, you can use it in a pair of socks, in a shawl, whatever you like. You can buy multiple kits if you want. So I'm very excited about that. This is one. The other one is being thoughtfully prepared by Cass from Skip Rope Yarns. And then the third one is being prepared by Chloe from Woolen Works. So I'm very excited. And once I get more, I'll start to take product shots, and I'm waiting on some of the product to arrive. So these are samples. I'm waiting on some more of the product to arrive so I can knit up a sample. Knit up, I'm really bad at that. And I think it's quite timely because I didn't plan this, but it was serendipitous. You have like Amy from La Bien-Aimée putting out a book with Lena that is called Neon and Neutrals. And what better way to give you ideas about some of this stuff. So I'm quite pleased about that. That was a really happy coincidence. That was not planned. I don't deal with them. I'm not associated with them. This was just purely coincidence. So yeah, I think like that's life update, shop update. My grandma's out of hospital, by the way. She's back home. That's coming with its own challenges though. We'll see how I go with frequency of keeping you guys updated with what's going on. I found spacing it out a bit more was quite good. And we'll just take it from there. We'll take it from an episode at a time. So hopefully next time I know I'll have a finished object, the Weekender. Hopefully I'll have casted on my partner's sweater and the Louvre, and who knows, maybe even started the sample for this so I can show you how these work up together. The plan is to have the update so that you can buy some goodies by the end of March. I'd love to be able to do it sooner. There's just some other stuff that I'm still working out whether or not it'll make it in, but yeah, watch this space. Very excited. So twin sets. I'm still working out pricing for these because they're being sold as a bundle, so you're getting 2 and maybe a little something with it. So on that note, thank you for watching. I hope you're keeping well, keeping safe, keeping kind. I know that there's been a lot going on at the moment in a few different places around the world. That's quite stressful, quite scary, and distressing. So hopefully this little moment in time is giving you a bit of reprieve from that, and I will see you next time. So until then, please be kind to yourselves and each other, and if you want to get a notification when I next update, you can hit the little bell or subscribe, If not, that's okay. And yeah, I will talk to you then. Thanks.